Hello and welcome to another episode of the Psychic School podcast, as well as Aphantasia Experiments. Today, I'm not going to be walking while I talk or doing a dice reading. I am going to do more of a specific episode. I want to talk a bit about ADHD. I've mentioned before on this podcast that I have ADHD. Have I been diagnosed with ADHD? Yes, my family physician, like my family doctor, diagnosed me, but I didn't go through rigorous testing where I went to see a psychologist, a psychiatrist, or do any sort of like educational testing. I did not get diagnosed as a child. I actually was diagnosed when my son, who I believe was 7 at the time, or 6, 7? I don't know. He went for his psycho-educational assessment, and through the testing with the family doctor as well, there was a questionnaire that my husband kind of looked at and was like, some of this sounds like you. And I was like, yeah. And so that's kind of how I got diagnosed. I reached out to my doctor and said, there's a lot of things on here that I resonate with, and Fletcher, if it's hereditary, and we definitely have it in my family, I would like to explore options on how to treat it. So this is probably 2 years ago, I tried some medication. I went on Concerta, which is like a type of ADHD medication. It definitely made me super anxious, focused, but anxious. And then I went on Vyvanse, and that was much better for me, but I do not take it regularly. I only take it, I truly only take it because I am actually very good at focusing, and I'll go through this with you on the podcast. I have no problem focusing if I'm interested in something. So before I left my last job, I would often take it if I knew I had to do like royalty statements or financial stuff, like very like Excel stuff that I had to like sit on the computer and stare at a screen, and it was like a lot of numbers and not a lot of like the normal stuff that I would do. Like, I'm a very creative person, so when I had to do more like analytical stuff, I would pop a Vyvanse, and this is like, this is not my medical advice. Please don't take this as medical advice. I'm just explaining like my situation and how, my evolution of ADHD. So I would take this, and sometimes I would go like the whole week, and I would take one every day of the week, and what I found was like, I would totally lose my appetite. So that like contributed to some weight loss, but also just like feeling crummy. So that didn't help. And I think for me, the medication, what it did to me, it's like it took away my impulse to do something more creative. So, at my job, I had to do a lot of different tasks, but the things that I wanted to do, I could sit there for 12 hours and not move, and it would be super beneficial. But then there was days that I had to do stuff that I hated. And to get me that same like motivational strength, I would have to take a Vyvanse to like stay focused. So a lot of people with ADHD, especially female adults, they don't have problems focusing on stuff that they are passionate about or feel connected to in some way. But if it's something that's just out of their element, often that's when you're going to see like the lack of focus and the squirreliness. So I'm going to go through just some stuff that I've done some research on, how ADHD shows up for adults, especially adult females. I've actually had like 3 or 4 people email me about this, so I thought, okay, this is definitely a subject I want to tackle. And I am very curious. So if you're listening to this and you have aphantasia, I would love to hear from you if you have ADHD, if you've been diagnosed, and what that looks like for you. Because I think that there's a lot of things we don't necessarily know about and don't always talk about. For me personally, I truly believe, and I'm not just saying this as like something people say because it makes them feel better. I believe, like with full certainty, that my ADHD, if that's what I have, is a superpower. All of the pieces behind it contribute to me to being like a super creative and intuitive person. And I love that about myself. I love all the things about me that are basically ADHD characteristics. So the one thing I don't love is I'm not very good at keeping my closet organized or like my art supplies. But other than that, I don't know. I'm all right. Not to like toot my own horn, but I like myself, and you should too. So here we go. Here's a list of 20 different characteristics, and then I will loop into like aphantasia and intuition and stuff as I go through this as well, because I think there is a correlation. Hyperfocus. So people with ADHD have the ability to deeply engage in tasks of interest, often resulting in impressive productivity and creativity. So that's like completely what I was saying before. And this is like my son. My son has ADHD. He's 9, but he presents himself in a different way, definitely different than me. But if he gets into a project or I don't know, he researches things, and I do the same thing. Like I'm always exploring consciousness, and it's like I get obsessed with it and I can't stop researching. And I definitely I'm very creative and I have ideas all the time. And if I'm interested in something, I can sit on a computer or read something or whatever for long periods of time without needing to come up for air, basically. But because I have lots of kids, I get easily distracted and disrupted, and this might be another one I list later, but that is something that I struggle with, is when I'm in that zone and I want to focus and I want to I'm super into whatever I'm learning about or whatever task I'm engaged in, and I get interrupted, it pisses me off. I get annoyed. And this was like especially difficult when it was like COVID time and all my kids were home, and my husband's a teacher, he works from home, and he would just want to like chit chat during the day. And I'm like, I am in the zone of answering 400 emails. I need to stay in that zone to keep going in this zone. Don't take me out of the zone. So like coming in and out of like those kind of creatively inspired moments, it's hard. So I think it's like, I swear a psychologist told me once that it can take up to like 20 minutes to get back into that flow again. So think about that before you interrupt someone who looks like hyper-focused, because it's annoying. It's annoying when you have ADHD, or maybe at all if someone interrupts you when you're in that flow. Let people flow. That's my suggestion. Next one, innovative problem solving. You have a talent for thinking outside of the box and finding unique solutions to challenges. Booyah, absolutely. I'm the problem solver, always at my jobs, in my family. I'm always looking at different solutions. And one of my recent dream experiences when I was in Cuba was my guides kind of telling me that life is about experimenting with things in our life, and the situations that keep arising over and over again. The purpose is to continuously innovate and problem solve in different ways. And I really do think I'm very good at problem solving. Computer issues at work, I would problem solve. I often do, like if something's taking a strangely long amount of time, instead of continuously doing something in that way, I will spend the time and come up with a solution to make the procedure more efficient. That's important to me, is to like problem solve inefficiencies. Multitasking skills. I just don't like multitasking. So this is on the list here, and I think it's physically, mentally impossible to actually multitask. But I definitely, if you look at my computer screen right now, I think my computer would say, hey, you're multitasking, because I have my email, my photo drive, my podcast thing, just like so many things open. I don't know, maybe 25 tabs. And I'm like, most of them I'm actually kind of using right now. So I guess I'm multitasking, and I'm also like, I just made my kids lunch and I'm going to be interrupted in 2 seconds, and I am kind of always multitasking, but I don't really like this point, because I kind of like one of my biggest things recently is being kind of giving in to the fact that we're only human and we should only do one thing at a time. And that I think most of us are going crazy for having to balance more than one thing at a time. And I would really like to simplify life a little for everyone, and understand that we can't actually multitask. It's impossible. So that one I don't fully agree with, but it's on there. Intuition and insight. I'm like, yes, this is it. I fully believe I have a heightened sense of intuition, which enables me to make connections and see patterns that other people might miss. This is huge. I am the connection queen. I'm able to be like, oh, you met this person there? Well, does he know this person? Like, that's a terrible example because that didn't make any sense, but I'm able to like connect past events to present moments, or past people to like present moments, or like recognize someone from a party I met 5 years ago. Like I'm fairly good at like making those connections and understanding how important those connections are. I don't know how ADHD that is, but I definitely like making those connections are I'm very good at that. And I love, every time I make a connection, it's like, I get this like fuzzy feeling inside, you know? I was recently reminded of the Steve Jobs commencement speech, where he talks about how connections can only be made backwards, not forward, in life. So I watched that the other day, and that resonated with me. But I also watched it and was like, damn, Steve Jobs has ADHD, and I love it. You know, he totally did. So superpower, like the people with ADHD, I swear they're the people that come up with crazy inventions and have unique ideas and make the world a super special place. So, okay, going on. Intuition and insight, that's the one I just said. Empathy, boy, that's me for sure. And again, this is me talking about like ADHD in adult female specifically, because I don't know if that's the case for, children with ADHD. I think that I think empathy is something that you learn as you grow more. And with children, especially with children with ADHD, they have such impulse control issues often, not always. It does present in different ways. But some children with ADHD can actually seem like they lack empathy, because they're just like going so fast, you know what I mean? I think that empathy is something that you develop through time and experience. I feel like as a child, for me, I was extremely empathetic, but I don't feel like that was the norm. Like I never felt like the way I was processing emotions was the normal way, So I always felt like I was I was a highly sensitive person. That's a topic for another day. I will definitely do a whole episode on that. So empathy, increased emotional sensitivity that allows for strong connection and understanding of other feelings. I absolutely have that. I am always aware, and I'm always trying to make sure people feel included. I hate thinking that someone might be left out of a situation. I have maybe overly strong empathy skills, that to a fault almost. Creative expression is another one. A flair for artistic and creative endeavors, fueled by a rich imagination. Well, yeah, I have a rich imagination, but I can't visualize. So interesting, right? You can definitely have a rich imagination and not be able to visualize. So even though aphantasia technically means aphan, I think means lack of. Again, I should probably like put this in front of me and have it in front of me, but I kind of just like rambling. But I could just like Google it and get it right. Anyways, it basically means lack of imagination, but I definitely have a very, very, I was going to say vivid imagination, and that's not the word to describe it because it's not vivid as in like full of imagery, but it's vast. Maybe that's not the word either. Oy. I don't know what the word is, but I definitely like think I have a lot of creative ideas, and solutions and thoughts that play in my head that are very creative. Like, I'm always thinking of different creative projects and stuff. Writing music in my head, even though I'm not musical at all. And I always have at least 3 or 4 stories that I want to write in my head. You know, I have this screenplay in my head that I want to get out. There's always something like that I'm like, oh, I hope I get some of this out before I die, because there's so much in me, just kind of waiting to get out. And that's part of the reason why I started this podcast, is that I have all this, like, I don't know, stuff inside of me that it's like it needs a release. So this is a way of doing that. If you feel similar to that, it's very easy to start a podcast. So go for it. And there's nothing, doesn't hurt anyone. And I'm sure your voice, people would love to hear it. Okay, back to my list. Passionate pursuits. People with ADHD often have an intense enthusiasm for activities they're passionate about, which is similar to what I was saying before. And this is so true. Like, if something excites you, you're just like, you just want to read all about it. You're going to be at the library getting every book in that section. You're going to, watch every YouTube video, listen to all the podcasts about it, soak in all the information. That's totally who I am. And I feel like over time, my passions have definitely kind of wavered. Like, I've had different passions, and I have different, like, art projects that I start and stop and start and stop, and it kind of goes in waves. And maybe that's an ADHD thing, where it's like you don't finish something and then you go back to it, like, because I get into a zone. Like, I get into a zone of painting, and then I get into a zone of air clay, and then I go back to painting when I'm in that zone, and it kind of goes back and forth. But I definitely don't just have one passion. And areas of interest, like, I've been interested in spirituality and psychic development and consciousness exploration, near-death experiences, all of those kind of things. I think that's been something I've been interested in my whole life. Like, if there was a psychic on a TV show, I would be watching it for sure. Completely enthralled and, like, wondering how they did it. And like, if there's a psychic, if someone's having a party with a psychic, I'm definitely buying into that. I'm doing tea leaf readings. I will do all of that. I've always found it really interesting. My first baby shower when I was 17, I had a baby super young, but my mom and her best friend threw a baby shower for me with tarot readers. It's like a random memory that just came up. And it was such a good experience. And it's funny that tarot reader actually read that I wasn't going to stay with the guy I was with. Can you imagine the tarot reader? How brave that would have been. I wonder if my mom actually, like, paid the tarot reader to do that. I should ask her. Like, tell her this relationship sucks and she needs to get out. Because that's basically what the tarot reader did. And when I read tarot now, I always try to, like, see the positive spin on something. So it's funny that tarot reader was just like, nope. You're 8 months pregnant, but your dude sucks. It was true, but it's just, like, she could have read it in a completely different way. And so I do wonder if my mom paid that tarot reader. I wonder if I'll ever know that answer. I don't even know where on the list I was, because that was a tangent. Okay. Adaptability. You can quickly adapt to changing situations, embrace new challenges with enthusiasm. This is me for sure. I think I'm also, like, a 5 energy, like 5 life path. I like change. Like, I like changing direction, and I like, almost like, say you missed your bus stop. I wouldn't be like, I'd be like, okay, well, this is a new adventure that we need to figure out, I never have that, like, panic mode. I'm always like, well, this is something that it's just a different situation, Even when I've, like, lost my wallet, I'll be like, it's gonna be fine. I'll go back to the stores. It'll be there. Like, I always have that kind of, like, meh. Like, this is the way life is supposed to play out, And shit's supposed to happen. Like, your car's supposed to break down sometimes, and that can lead you to different situations. So, being able to adapt to the constant changing universe around us is really important. And I think I'm definitely good at that. And if maybe you're really good at it and you have ADHD and you don't know about it. And again, it's a good thing. It's a superpower. It's not a bad thing. So, Courageous risk-taking. The last two, I'm like trying to compare myself to my husband, because my husband is like very not ADHD. Like he is his brain, it's like so structured, like there's no dust in there, you know? Like everything has its place and it's all perfect. And like if he has a to-do list, he's checking off those things. Nothing is going to bother, and like nothing's going to disrupt him. He's going to get it done. He doesn't understand when people are like, nah, like when their thoughts are scattered or they have too many ideas going on, because he's just like, boom. But he also like hates change, and like will spend 3 hours trying to choose a football, you know, at the sports store to replace the old football, and then he'll end up just buying the same football he bought before, you know. So he is adverse to change, and I'm like, Ma, bring me all the footballs. I don't play football, so that's a bad example, but we're very different in that sense. Even like financially, we were doing like our financial assessment with our financial advisor, and we do like a risk assessment. And I'm very thankful for my husband in this situation, because he does the lower risk and I'm like high risk. And if it was up to me, I'm in Canada, so I don't know if you know anything about like the mortgage rates here in Ontario. I don't know how it is everywhere, but they are super high, and we're on a fixed mortgage rate. Thankfully, we renewed a couple of years ago, so we're not in that. If we were on the variable one, which I might have done if I was single, because I'm a risk taker, my mortgage, I don't even know if I could afford it at this point. So it's not even something to laugh about. It's awful. A lot of people are struggling with that. So, but I feel like it's always good to have people in your life to help balance you out. You know, I think that everybody who doesn't have ADHD needs someone with ADHD in their life, and vice versa. Is it vice versa or is it vice versa? I've heard both. Let me know. Courageous risk-taking. Unconventional career paths. I love this because, as you may know, I recently left my marketing job to basically figure my own crap out. I'm just kind of doing freelance work, but I'm taking on a lot of random jobs, and that's kind of what I want. And I want to do this podcast and eventually monetize things and build my career as, I'm not even sure, a spiritual coach or something with intuition. I don't know where that's going to land yet, but I know it's definitely unconventional. It just is. And the thought for me, if I'm not like working a 9-to-5 doing something I'm extremely passionate about at this point in my life, like in my 20s, I feel like I could do it. In my 20s, I worked like in the magazine print industry, and the people surrounding me were what kept me going. But I think now, as I like approach 40, the thought of working a 9-to-5 at a job that I am not passionate about and that I have to take medication to just function at is not something I can continue with. I need to be working unconventionally, and I am trying to figure that out as I go. And it's been working for me so far. But if you need any freelance work done, writing, design, whatever, reach out. I'm available-ish. I am fairly busy, but I do take on stuff. And who knows, maybe this will get to someone out there who needs it, and it's a perfect partnership. Who knows? Energetic bursts. Whew. This says periods of high energy that can feel like fuel bursts of productivity and engagement. Absolutely, I have that. I even have energetic bursts in my conversation where I get like so excited to talk about something. I'm sure you hear it in the podcast where I like start talking about something and my voice just kind of speeds up like a chipmunk. That's when I just like, I'm excited and I just really want to express myself. So I speed up a bit, but yeah, I definitely have energetic bursts, but I also have energetic like bursts, like my bubble is bursting, like my air balloon has got a hole poke in it and it's slowly falling to the ground and is about to crash. And I definitely don't get that as much anymore that I've left my career, but it was hard. And especially when I would take the Vyvanse. So if I had like an extremely stressful week or like a lot of deadlines due, And I really don't recommend this, so just because I did it does not mean that it's the right thing to do. I would take like Vyvanse every day, and then on the weekend I'd be like, I just need to like eat a sandwich because I like couldn't even eat when I was taking it. I would go off of it on the weekend and just like relax, and I'd be like so tired, and it was like I was go all week, and then as soon as I go off of it, I'm like, this is who I really am, but I need to like spend the day meditating and like decompressing because I've like used up all of my energy reserves. Perseverance, a strong determination to overcome obstacles, even when faced with challenges that might discourage others. Yeah, I have that. I mean, I think my 20s and 30s were full of perseverance. I was always the one, persevering. And now I'm like, I don't want to persevere anymore if I don't like something. I think that that's what my 40s are going to be, is like, if I don't like it, I'm not doing it. I will pursue things that I enjoy. I am extremely talented at what I do. I know I'm a good designer. I know I'm a good writer. And people typically, and I don't want to like, again, toot my own horn, but people typically like me. I go to a party or something. I am a good conversationalist. People like me. People open up to me about a lot of things. And I feel, where am I getting with this? When I do this is my ADHD. I got into a zone there. I was talking about energetic bursts and then perseverance. So in my 20s and 30s, I was like, it doesn't matter. I just wanted to like rise that go up the ladder and, be the best in my career. It didn't really matter. It was like, again, I like the people I work with, but at a certain point, I'm like, I've learned everything I can about, the job that I'm doing, and now I'm just doing stuff I don't like for someone I don't like. So, I feel like for me, I can persevere only as long as I can, and then I just can't anymore. But I definitely, if it was a project that I was super passionate about, I'd be persevering the heck out of it, Attention to detail. I would say this comes and goes for me. Sometimes I'm intensely focused on like making sure nothing's wrong, and sometimes I'm like, well, fuck, if something's going to be wrong, so let's like get the first round in, and then we can make corrections after. It doesn't have to be completely perfect the first round kind of thing. So I think that my attention to detail has faded over time. And quick learner, I'm definitely a quick learner, but especially in sorry, my kid's phone just rang. Messenger kids, it's so annoying. It goes through my phone. It's like every time they go to do a video chat, it goes through my phone. It's so annoying. Quick learner. So especially in areas that captivate your attention. Again, if you're not interested in it, you might not be a quick learner. This is a good example of like kids with ADHD. If they're not, like, they might not be doing good in math or doing well in math or reading or something. Like if they aren't engaged and in if it doesn't spark something in them, they're just gonna be like out to lunch and looking out the window and whatever. And I'm totally the same way. If a thing for me, and this is probably not an ADHD thing, but I hate showing disrespect towards people. So if someone's doing a presentation or something, I am fully listening. And I know like ADHD, it's a lot about like, you don't listen, you interrupt. That's not me at all. I am a very good listener. I think it's very important to show respect to people, giving a speech or whatever it is. It drives me crazy when you're at a wedding and people are like talking during speeches. Hate it. I hate that so much. But I feel like, oh my God, I don't even know where I was going with that. This is like a classic ADHD episode, I guess. quick learning, an aptitude for picking up new skills rapidly. So I said that one already. I don't know where I was going with that. I'm sorry, guys. That's so annoying. But basically, oh yeah, kids with ADHD, they can excel in certain subjects and then just like really suck in other ones. So, and this is where I think that people with ADHD, like kids, they might not do so well in school, but I feel like a lot of people with ADHD are very successful adults because you find what you're passionate about and then you go with that and then you're like, boom, this is my thing, you know? And then if you lose sight or you lose interest in that thing, you can often like get enthralled in something else, right? Like learn a new skill. Open-mindedness, I say that one, receptiveness to new ideas and willingness to explore unconventional concepts. I definitely love exploring unconventional concepts. Hello, Psychic School podcast. Like, I love thinking about things we can't understand and like wondering, you know. I think I recently listened to a podcast about starseeds, and this whole thing, like, I don't know if I'm a starseed. It makes sense that in a past life I might have been persecuted for having psychic abilities, since I have aphantasia, but I don't know. I would have no way of knowing if I was a starseed unless I had some, you know, prophetic dreams about it or some sort of travel dreams where I could experience it. But I'm open to wondering about it, you know. I'm definitely open to exploring the idea and learning more about it. What I'm not open to doing currently is like spending $5,000 on a course to learn about my history as a starseed, because I don't resonate with that. But if it resonates with you, I feel like that's something that you should look into. Sorry, I'm getting interrupted. One sec. Sorry about that. I got interrupted by my daughter. Story of my life. Okay, next on the list, empowerment of others. You have a natural inclination to support and empower the people around you. What? How did I not see this one before? This is naturally me. You know what? This list here is just like making me feel good about myself. But this is so me, like empowering of others. This is like, whenever I work with people, I'm like, I want everyone to feel supported and good and feel like they're learning and growing when they're around me. And I light up when I inspire other people. So another reason why I started this podcast is like to talk about things that inspire me and, you know, magical moments that have happened to me, because I feel like these magical moments, if you don't share them, they don't seem as magical. So that was like one of the reasons I started this podcast, was to inspire. So empowerment of others, that's a good one. I like that a lot. Next one is unpredictable creativity. It says the tendency to surprise others with sudden bursts of innovative ideas or projects. I feel like that's like more generic. Clearly we know people with ADHD are super duper creative and amazing. I mean, think of Steve Jobs. I don't know if he was diagnosed, but I'm going to assume that he was, because, yeah. Also, like, people who have ADHD, this is a fun fact, you'll notice, also, like, just creative people in general, that a lot of creative people wear all black or, like, the same kind of outfits all the time, and it's because, and this is, like, totally generalizing, not everyone's like this, but it takes like so much CPU, like brain power, to come up with outfits that if you can like take that process away, if you're not passionate about fashion, if you can take that process away, like then your brain isn't using up all that good juice. You're saving it for something more creative. So I think of Steve Jobs and his like classic blue jeans and black turtleneck kind of thing. And I think, yeah, that's Steve Jobs. He did that because he didn't want to use any of his creative juices towards something that didn't mean anything to him, you know? So I think that's cool. I wear a lot of black. I've only recently started to add color to my wardrobe, and that's like to add more joy, but I definitely like, I'm a, hey, easy, get a black dress for a wedding kind of thing. Strong verbal skills, a gift for gab, basically, a gift for communication, often expressing thoughts and ideas eloquently. I don't know how eloquent I am. As you can see on this podcast, I often go into tangents. I think that part of that is like channeling a bit. I often will start talking, and if I'm having a conversation with someone, so on here, or if I'm sending a voice note, what happens, and it happens to all of my friends, I do voice notes with a lot of people, and it happens with everyone, when you start talking, eventually you're going to get to a point where you're like, you went on a tangent there and I don't even know what I was saying. And every time I do that on the podcast, I go, oh, it's because I have ADHD. And I like do a little making fun of myself. But I promise you, if you are going unscripted on a voice note or a podcast or whatever, eventually you will get to a state, if you have ADHD or if you don't have ADHD, where you're going to go, whoa, I just talked about something totally random that I wasn't planning on talking about. Where did that come from? But I feel like those moments, those like random tangents that you have that you just like say and you're like, I don't even know why I said that. It's usually for the other person, and or there's some connection there that you're going to figure out over time. So don't ignore that, and like talk freely, and yeah, don't worry about being like, ugh. It's a hard thing though. And I do it because this is a podcast, and maybe I should be more professional and have like a script or something. It would not be the same though for me. I have to just talk. But I often like interrupt and say like, whoa, I don't even know what I was saying there. Because sometimes you talk and talk and talk, and then eventually your brain just goes completely blank. So not sure if that's ADHD, but it says here that people with ADHD have strong verbal skills. I definitely think I have strong verbal skills in that I am a very good communicator. I am like the person in my friends group, or like, I shouldn't say that. All of my friends are excellent communicators. But like my husband's not a great communicator, and I'm not like trashing him. He's excellent in so many other ways, but not the best communicator. So he goes like, say we go to a party with all of his friends and my friends. At the end of the party, I know information about every single person, about what they're going to name their next dog 5 years from now. I know all this information, and my husband has gotten no information other than the leaf score, So, but yeah, not everyone I say has strong verbal skills, but maybe that's a ADHD characteristic. I definitely have read that people with ADHD often like interrupt people, but I don't. And I've met a lot of ADHD people who are like that, who are like aloof or like unaware that they're not fully listening. I think I said this in another podcast before. There are people out there that you talk to, and you can tell when you're talking to them that they're not really listening. They're just coming up with an answer, and they're trying to figure out what they're going to say next. And that's not a real conversation. Like the listening is important, and I know that is a characteristic of a lot of ADHD people, is like interrupting or like not letting people finish their thought. So if that's something that you're struggling with, yeah, it's just a thing, I guess. But know that if you worry about the conversation like going silent for a few seconds after, people don't mind a couple seconds of silence for you to like digest their opinion. I think that people would prefer that over you responding to something that you haven't fully been receptive to. Okay, moving on. I feel like this is going to be a really long podcast. Although we are on number 19 of 20, but I want to go back about aphantasia and stuff too. So, change catalyst. That's interesting. They have the ability to instigate change and inspire transformation in both personal and professional spheres. Totally. Again, I said I'm a 5 energy. If you don't know your birth number, you can just Google it. It's your birthday and your name and something, but I'm a 5, and that's like a lot about change. When I was a kid, like when I was a teenager, the only thing I had really control over changing was my bedroom, and I would change it all the time. Like the configuration of it, I would always like change where my bed was or change where my dresser was. And it's weird now, like living, I've been married for, I don't know, 12 years, I think, 12, 11, but living together for longer than that. And it's weird when you have your own space and your own furniture and stuff, and like you kind of, I don't know, everything's in its space. We don't move furniture around a lot, but I think if I was like single, I'd be like once a month like rearranging furniture. I don't know what it is. It's like I like that kind of change. Like yeah, I don't know why. So a change catalyst. Yeah, and I'm also like really good at like if there's a problem to try to look at different ways of solving it instead of just being like, okay, this is the problem, this sucks. Okay, well, what can we do about it, and how can we change this? This isn't something that we need to continue with going forward. There are solutions to every problem. So I'm pretty good at like recognizing that and understanding that even though change is uncomfortable, it is very much important in life. So the next one, which is the last one on this list, is that we have a rich inner world. A vibrant internal thought process marked by a constant stream of ideas and reflections. Totally. I'm always reflecting on stuff. I always have a stream of ideas. And this is where I like really want people to know that people with aphantasia absolutely have imaginations. It's just different, and it's more ideas and reflections. Yeah, I like that terminology actually. A constant stream of ideas and reflections. That's like, if there was a song title for my shower every day, it would be Constant Stream of Ideas and Reflections. It would be a good little ditty. I have a lot of ideas and reflections. I'm always like, especially like with problems, I try to look at it like, why is this happening? How is it going to benefit me? What's the outcome of this? Like we're really reflecting on, especially the negative things, because you would be really surprised to see all the positive outcomes that come from negative situations, because negative situations spark change, typically, and you can't better yourself without, evolving and changing and growing and learning, and a lot of growth comes from pain and tragedy and whatnot. So, okay, I'm just, one second. Sorry about that. Okay, so I wanted to talk now. I went through the 20 little random characteristics, and I know that there's more, but I wanted to talk about like the correlation between ADHD, aphantasia, and psychic abilities, just to get the conversation going. And if you can come up with other correlations, please feel free to email me. My email is rofo, R-O-F-O, creative@gmail.com, or psychicschoolpodcast@gmail.com. I will answer both emails. But if you have anything to say on this matter, I am sure I'm leaving stuff out, and I might do a follow-up episode on it, but I'd love to hear from you. So, ADHD in connection with aphantasia and psychic abilities. Okay, so aphantasia and ADHD, let's talk about that. So with aphantasia, it's the inability to visualize mental images, but also for many people, it's not just visualizing. It's like five senses, right? So you can't smell, you can't see, you can't hear, you can't taste in your mind, and a lot of people can't do that. So even people who don't characterize themselves as people with aphantasia, but for me, like, I don't have any of my senses in my mind. So what I've read is that aphantasia might have some correlation with ADHD, basically because both conditions involve differences in cognitive processing and attention. So it doesn't really say much on it. Like, there's no, I think maybe because aphantasia is so, it's not studied a ton, right? It's like 2015 is when it really became noticed, but like became a thing and became studied more. But think about how recent that is, I would love to be part of any sort of study, any sort of experimentation on people with aphantasia and ADHD, or both, or either, or whatever, because there's so much we don't know, right? Okay, so let's think about unconventional thinking and psychic abilities. Some people have said that ADHD related Unconventional thinking patterns might be linked to enhanced intuition or psychic abilities. So, booyah. So if you're thinking, okay, most people don't think this way, well, maybe most people aren't getting information the same way because you are tuned into source and you're getting intuitive downloads. Maybe. I definitely have this, but I don't know what other people's brains are. Do other people have these like full downloads that kind of plop into their head? Or is that an unconventional thinking pattern? I don't know. So this idea stems from the unique ways in which ADHD individuals process information and make connections. So one of my superpowers of having ADHD, which I don't know if it's an ADHD superpower or just like an intuitive superpower, is that I'm able to easily process information and make connections to like past events and past situations. So unconventional, yes, maybe, I guess. Another part of the reason why I started this podcast is like, I only know my own brain, and I think my brain is pretty normal, you know, but when you start talking to other people and you learn about how they visualize or how they like get ready for a trip. Oh, you went on a trip and you packed your bags and you couldn't visualize what was in your bags? What? You know, these are the comments I get. Like, my brain is different than other people's brain, and I've only ever known the way my brain works. And the way my brain works is I get full downloaded. It's like a CD-ROM downloaded into my head with all this information. And if I don't use that information like quickly, it kind of like fades away. But that's how like ideas come in. So, you know, I feel like I could be just like working at a company and giving ideas for inventions. Like, that would be my ideal job because I like have so many ideas. So yeah, unconventional thinking, creativity and psychic intuition. That's another thing. Like, creative thinking is often associated with ADHD and could potentially overlap with the intuitive thinking associated with psychic abilities. This might result in a unique blend of imaginative insights. I like that. And I also think that like creativity and psychic intuition is connected in the way that the more creative you are and the more you practice like art, it doesn't matter what kind of art, but that helps you, it helps you process your intuition kind of, and you'd be surprised at how much like meditative information comes to you when you're like painting. I do air clay, and I will just be like making a ball with air clay and moving it around in my hands, and the process of doing that like turns my brain off, and then I get intuitive information, and I swear that's like psychic information in it. And the majority of my psychic information comes from while I paint or do art. So I think there is like a connection there. So if you're listening to this and you're like, I want to develop my psychic skills, and you're like, I'm not an artist, try just painting nothing, you know? Get black and white and just paint. You don't even have to use colors if you don't want to. Like, just paint or doodle. This is what Tyler Henry does. He just like doodles, right? And that helps his brain like unlock like the one side of his brain. I think this is what happens. I think your left side like stops working basically, or it gets consumed by the process of doing art, doodling or painting or using air clay. And then that helps you connect to the side of your brain that the intuitive information kind of goes to. So creativity and psychic intuition, I think definitely connected. Open-mindedness and psychic perception. ADHD individuals often have open minds. Ha! See, how can you listen to this and not be like, people with ADHD are freaking awesome? Everybody likes an open-minded person. Whoever said, oh, I love that guy, he's so close-minded. I don't know. So open-mindedness and psychic perception. ADHD individuals often have open minds and are receptive to unconventional ideas. Again, obviously I love that. I hate convention. This trait might contribute to heightened perceptions of psychic phenomenon. That's very true too. Like, I think the more open-minded you are to psychic abilities, like psychic phenomena, the more it will happen to you. Because if you're like, this is impossible, there's no way a dead person can talk to me, there's no way that balloon can move on its own, like whatever it is, there's no way. If you go into it being like it's black and white, there's absolutely no way, then it's never going to happen for you. But if you go into situations being like, what if, going into situations with wonder will literally change your life, so. And I don't know if that's a switch you can turn on. I think that part of what makes me unique and part of what makes me me is that I am so full of wonder, and I have been since I was a kid. So I think that I'm very open to psychic perception and psychic phenomena. If my fire alarm in my house starts going off and there's no fire, I just immediately say, hi Super Omi, like I think that it's my dead grandmother, and maybe it's just the batteries, but I don't know. I believe, and I experience things more often than not. I think because I have that openness, and I definitely am not closed off. Like I'm like, open me up more. I do meditations to like open up my third eye because it's so cool. The more it opens up, the cooler life is. So, attention to detail. I don't even like this one. It says, contrary to the stereotype, individuals with ADHD can sometimes, there's the sometimes word, exhibit intense focus and attention to detail, which might play a role in the development of psychic abilities. Oh, this is actually interesting. See, I didn't read the whole thing. This is like part of my ADHD. I skim things. Yeah. You know what is interesting about that is that I am so passionate about learning about developing my psychic abilities and just learning about consciousness and trying to learn about everything that we don't know about, like the things that we really don't have concrete answers to. 1 second. Okay, sorry about that. Another interruption. I'm down 2 kids today, so I only have 2. But they still like attention and interrupting podcasts, so sorry about that. I talked about the attention to detail. One thing that I wanted to say was, so I didn't really get into like aphantasia and ADHD too much because there's really not a lot out there, but I do wonder if with aphantasia, if you don't have the ability to visualize and you're in class, for example, are you not less distracted? Like, would you not be more focused than like someone? Like, I feel like having a vivid imagination where you like see things might be distracting in a way. So maybe in a sense, having aphantasia helps with the ADHD because there's less distractible things, like the ability to imagine might deter me from focusing. I don't know. I'd be interested to hear from anyone who has been diagnosed with ADHD, who has aphantasia, or if you don't and you like listen to this podcast and you're like, pretty sure I have all those characteristics. What's next? Feel free to email me. I don't think that if you have ADHD, especially as an adult female, or if you're listening to this and you're a male, I'm not like, knocking you. It's just that this is like specifically for females, but it could also relate to you. So don't, if you're a male and you're resonating with this, just resonate with it. It's okay. I think that if you have lived your whole life and you've, been successful or thrived, then who cares about the label? It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. And honestly, if you have to take pills to get through your day because your job is so awful that you need to take medication to function throughout your day, it's probably time for a career change. And I know that's not always an option, and it's not always easy to land in a job that is, I don't know, that keeps you completely engaged and enthralled. But because you have this superpower of being able to hyperfocus and being able to like come up with creative solutions and be incredible in every way, I think you do have the opportunity to look for a job that you can flourish in instead of having to pop Vyvanse to get through your day. So just if you're listening to this and you feel really like connected to it and whatever, one second, I'm gonna get interrupted again. So if you feel like this podcast kind of resonated with you in a way and you're like, yes, that sounds like me, I totally have ADHD, I'm also a psychic, and I have aphantasia, like all of these things, chill out. Sorry, I hate when people say chill out, but don't worry about it. You don't need to go and get a diagnosis. You don't need to get medication. You don't have to do anything. Just lean into what you're passionate about. And I really believe that if we all did this, the world would be way better. I mean, imagine if everyone was like following their passions and doing things that they loved, especially people who are like hyper-focused and, you know, can accomplish so much with their brains when they love what they do. You know, the world would be a lot less grumpy and we'd have a lot more problems solved. And yeah, I feel like everyone would just be better if we kind of leaned into our skills and our passions and what lights us up. So is that being intuitive? Is that having ADHD? I don't know, but I think that everyone, ADHD or not, can benefit from leaning into their passions instead of fearing them. I think we fear chasing our dreams because we're worried about failing. And I don't know, when something lights you up and you follow that, I don't think there's really room for failure. I don't think failure is part of it. I think that every step in that process of discovering yourself is action and not failure. Like, even if you fail at something, it's just like a step that's helped you learn and succeed in the future. So my public statement today is lean into what you're passionate about. Accept your ADHD as a superpower. Accept that you're intuitive, and don't be closed-minded. Nobody likes closed-minded people. Promise you that. And yeah, ADHD is not a bad thing. It's a wonderful thing. It's an incredible thing. And if you have a kid with ADHD who's struggling, that struggle will dissipate over time. I think that you kind of feel like you're, I don't know, like you're living outside of your body almost. And I think that over time that kind of fades. And ADHD in adults is very different, I think, for male and females, but especially female when you get older. You know, a lot of people think of ADHD as like that crazy boy in the class who dumps a can of soup on his head at lunchtime and then runs around in circles and is really loud. You know, people who are hyperactive. I feel like ADHD is, there's a hyper component there. For me, the hyper is the hyper focus, not the hyper activity. And my son's like that too. I wouldn't say he has ADHD, but he's not a hyperactive person. He likes to be moving and stuff, but he's not like hyper. But he does get hyper focused on really weird things. Like, he gets hyper focused on creating, and I feel like this might be like autistic too, but he will like cut up paper for hours and then make them into money. I think it's his way of trying to manifest, which I love. And I'm also like, money isn't everything, but he has stacks of paper money in his room that he just like, he hyper focuses on that a lot. It's weird, but who knows? Maybe he'll work for the Canadian Mint when he's older and create money. Who knows? But if you have a child with ADHD, just know they're going to be successful in life. Who cares about their grades right now? Just lean into what they're passionate about. If they want to explore something totally wacko and weird, let them. It lights them up. The whole point of life is to be lit up, I think. And to understand when you are filled with light, you know, so you can recognize those moments. I think that's it for now. That's like a whole hour episode, which is insane. I feel like that's my longest episode. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you have any input about this subject, please feel free to email me. I would love to talk more about it if there's more to talk about. So have a wonderful day, and I hope to hear from you.